Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're going to talk about why it's so important for you to fall in love for the life that's waiting for you on the other side of your clutter. This is something, as a simplification coach, that I have been helping women do for the last 28 years. I've been helping them get to the other side of clutter, and I see them every single day, every single week, start to live the life that they've been putting on hold because of all the clutter that they have, or that they have had, that's prevented them from truly enjoying their life. If you're new here, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Flora, certified simplification coach and 7-time author. And for over 28 years, I've been helping women like you align into a life and a business that you are wildly obsessed with by helping you clear out the 9 types of clutter keeping you from a life that you love. What are those 9 types of clutter? They are mental, spiritual, emotional, digital, financial, daily, body, process, and environmental clutter. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know every single time an episode is released. And today we are going to talk about romanticizing the after so that you can finally clear the clutter that's been getting in the way of you actually enjoying the life that you have. So to start off, let's define what romanticizing your life actually is. So I did a quick Google search, and I quote from Google: to romanticize your life is to adopt a mindset that finds beauty, joy, and wonder in ordinary moments by making small intentional choices to elevate your daily experiences rather than waiting for special occasions. This involves creating daily rituals like appreciating a cup of coffee or setting a nice ambiance with candles and treating yourself with kindness and presence. End quote. So I want you to think about the last time you went on vacation and you stepped into that hotel room or your Airbnb or maybe even a relative's home that has put you up in their spare bedroom. And I want you to think about how you felt about the location, the decorations, the usually simplistic vibe of how the entirety of a vacation feels. I want you to think about all the little nuances that held for you. Typically, when you are, let's just say, in an Airbnb, you walk in and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And you just like marvel at how perfect everything is and how simplistic. There's nothing extra. It just has what you need. And maybe you sleep really, really well and you wake up a little bit early and you brew a cup of coffee or your matcha, or you make a protein shake. And maybe you sit outside and you give yourself permission to just have a slow, easy morning. And you're sitting on the patio and you're listening to the birds sing and you're watching the rain come down, or, marveling at the beautiful skyline and the sunshine, whatever the day may hold. But you give yourself permission to just enjoy and soak it all in, whatever that is. And think about the rest of the vacation. Like, chances are you were savoring every last bit of that vacation. From the flight there, hopefully it was a smooth flight, but the Airbnb and all the adventures that you did or didn't do. For some people, vacation is going and seeing all the sights, and others' version of a perfect vacation is literally just sitting on the beach drinking Mai Tais. Whatever it is, I want you to think about that you were excited, and everything that you experienced during that vacation, you savored it. You gave yourself permission to just be in the moment, and you allowed yourself presence. This is what you can do with your own life. Romanticizing your life is about wearing that fancy dress just because. It's about using the fancy china and wearing that expensive perfume instead of waiting for someday special. You woke up today and you are special. Wear the damn dress, wear the perfume, wear the fancy lipstick. Give yourself permission to be in the opulence that you have at your fingertips. Romanticizing your life isn't delusional. It's devotion to that vibe that you want to feel every single day. It's not about pretending that everything is perfect. It's about choosing to notice. It's about choosing to savor. It's about choosing to create that meaning in everyday, ordinary moments. It's about opening your curtains in the morning and spending just a few extra minutes noticing the day. It's about making that cup of coffee and putting it in a really nice mug or your favorite mug and actually sitting down and sipping it slowly and savoring all the things. For those of you who back in the day used to watch Ally McBeal, there was kind of a risque scene where Ally and one of her coworkers were talking about sipping the very first sip of a latte. If you know, you know. It was very risque at the time. Give yourself permission to just feel what it feels like to have that very first bit of coffee touch your lips, go into your mouth, go down, you're tasting it, you're smelling it, you're experiencing all the sensations. If you're not a coffee drinker, maybe it's your smoothie, maybe it's a cup of tea, even just a fresh glass of water. We're so rushed in our everyday life that sometimes it's hard to fathom a slow morning or really just having that leisurely day where we can intentionally experience each and everything that we do. Romanticizing your life is about creating these small moments of intentionality and small moments of beauty, not because life is perfect, but because you deserve presence. Often what happens when people have so much clutter, not just physical clutter, but mental and emotional clutter, daily clutter, we feel like romanticizing our life is just kind of hogwash, and it's kind of like this Instagram term that people use to try to sell whatever it is that they're trying to sell on Amazon storefront, and that it's not really a reality. But again, I'm here to tell you that doing this for 28 years, it absolutely is a reality. So I want you to notice what you're feeling. And I want you to ask yourself, and I want you to put this in the comments before we start. I actually have a story that I want to share with you about right after my last divorce. But before I do that, share with me in the comments, what is one word, if you had to sum up, like what is one thing that I feel like I really want to experience in my life? It could be peace. It could be calm. It could be safety. It could be spaciousness, whatever it is. But I want you to put in the comments one word that you feel that you are just like your soul is absolutely craving to feel and have right now. Put that in the comments. And I want you to see what other people have shared as well. Don't watch this and not put it in the comments. Put it in the comments and then continue on. So romanticizing your life truly means you saying to your life and yourself, I deserve to feel good in the life that I already have. Until you romanticize your after, you're still going to tolerate your before. When someone tries to declutter without having a clear reason why, other than just to have less stuff, it's really challenging to keep up your momentum, because without a clear reason, you typically just get rid of all the surface level clutter, and most people end up saying to themselves, well, what's the point? Because I know in 6 months' time, it's going to be cluttered up again. So that's why it typically feels hard, because it's just this rinse and repeat cycle that I declutter, it comes back in, I declutter again, it comes back in. What the hell's the point? Why do I even bother? It's because you don't have a clear enough why. It's because you don't have a clear enough after that allows you to really understand what you're decluttering and what clutter actually holds. People don't stop decluttering because it's hard. They stop because the stuff that you're decluttering triggers guilt. It triggers old identities. It triggers the energy or the question of, well, what if I need this someday and I don't have it? What if I start to want to play tennis again? Or who am I without this version of me hanging around and reminding myself of how great I used to be? And a big portion of decluttering that a lot of people feel is the loss of who you once were. But because that loss feels so big, you often just clear the surface level stuff instead of the stuff that's actually really holding you back. And until you make room for who you are becoming or who you are now, that version of yourself now and who you are becoming, that old version of yourself is going to keep holding you back and literally tethering you to your past. And of course, it's going to feel hard to try to declutter all that because you don't have that clear vision of who you're becoming or that romanticized after version of your life. And so again, without a romanticized after, decluttering feels like deprivation. And when you have that romanticized after, or you have that clear vision of where you're going and what you want to feel, decluttering then becomes preparation. So I want to share with you the first time that I did this in my life. And I was, oh my gosh, this was a very hard time in my life. My father found out he had cancer. I asked for a divorce. My father passed away. I packed up with my 2 children, a 26-foot U-Haul, and moved from Oklahoma to Wisconsin. And I moved into a split-level ranch-style home on 2 acres. And I was bound and determined to be so stupidly intentional about what I brought into my space. And the one word that I wanted to feel was peace. Because that was something that I had not had in my life for a very, very, very long time. So when I first moved in, I told the kids, I said, we're only moving into the house what we absolutely need to, bring in. So that was the, furniture, that was the beds, and that was the kitchen stuff. All the other boxes, I'm like, we're keeping them out here, and I'm going to go through them one box very meticulously at a time. And so over the next couple of weeks, I spent a painstaking amount of time going through each and every box. And if it didn't feel peace, if it didn't elicit the feeling of peace, and if it didn't align with that vision of how I wanted to feel in this new space, it didn't come into my home. And I had a giant garage sale after this. And anything that didn't sell in the garage sale, I just dropped off at the local thrift store. Another thing that I did was while I was moving into this house, I looked at the colors. I hated the colors. It was like this dingy, dirty color, it was like a creamish white, and then this flat red brick color. And you literally looked at it and it got a stain on it because it was flat it was flat or matte color. It was horrible. I did not like it at all. And I wanted it to feel opulent. I wanted it to feel luxurious when I walked in each space. And I liked the color of the kitchen. It was yellow. But I knew that because it had such high ceilings that I could probably do with a bold, dark color. So I chose this beautiful, deep navy blue. And I painted this giant wall navy blue and a couple other walls navy blue. And I was like, this feels fabulous. And then there was a white with a little tint of blue that I used for some of the opposite walls. And then in my bedroom, I had two walls, this eggplant purple, and then the other wall I painted a white with a little hue of purple. And then for the rest of the basement, I had 3 different color grays. And oh my gosh, at the end of that 6 months, when I, finished unpacking everything and finished painting, I was like, this feels fabulous. During that 6 months, I also saved up for a really, for me, it was very expensive kitchen table. And I never imagined I would spend that much on a kitchen table, but I wanted to feel opulent. I wanted to feel successful. I wanted to feel a certain way every time I sat at that table. And every piece of the table was separate. So I got the table, I got the 4 chairs, and I got a bench. And then I also got this glass overlay to protect the top of the table. And when that table was delivered, and it was delivered with white glove, meaning that they brought it in, unpacked it, put it together, polished it, did all the things. And I was like, ooh, that's so fancy. But I was like, I wanted it to feel a certain way. And during the time that I was saving up for the table, I was using a card table that kind of swayed in the middle. And one of my sisters came over and she's like, why don't you just buy a Craigslist table for like $50 in the meantime? And I said, no, I don't want to settle for a $50 Craigslist table. I said, I've been settling for too long with so many things in my life. I'm done settling. I would rather eat on this janky card table than settle for a $50 Craigslist table. And she was like, okay. And I told her, I said, I've been settling in my life for too long with so many things, and I can't. I'm not available for settling any longer. She's like, all right, I get it. I understand. And during the time, again, that first 6 months to a year that I was there, of moving everything in meticulously, painting all the walls, bringing in certain throw pillows and my kitchen table and the chairs and the bench and certain plants, I also started to really intentionally create my days. And what that looked like for me was to wake up a little bit early, to watch the sunrise, to remember what it was like to have peace, because I hadn't had peace in my life for so long. And one of the things that I discovered that I forgot that I knew was that in Wisconsin, dew covers the grass in the morning. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I would do my morning walk. And then at the end of the walk, I would take my shoes off and walk back to the house. We had a very long driveway. And I walked back to the house in the grass. And I let my feet just get covered in the dew. And it was so good. And usually by the time I got to the house, my feet were frozen because the dew was so cold. But it felt so good. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And I savored every single moment. And it was one of those things that when I gave myself permission to be intentional, to be so methodical with what I brought into my life and what I did and how I moved, I literally started to curate these little things in my life. Again, everything from the type of dish that I used to the throw pillow that I had to the paint that was on the wall. It gave me permission to also curate how I was living my life as well. Again, I slept longer. I gave myself permission to be off my phone more and to be more present with my children and to intentionally bring in that peace. And not just for me, but for my kids as well, because they were craving that peace also. I started to eat more intentionally, and I also started to fall in love with my life like I had never done before. I didn't have the stillness to actually recognize how much I loved my life until I cleared out all of that excess clutter and cleared out the BS. And everything in my home was intentional, curated specifically to bring a feeling of peace. Again, not just for me, but for my boys as well. And I'll never forget one day I was standing at the kitchen table and I was just kind of surveying everything. And this was about a year after my divorce when I had moved. And like I said, my father had passed away. I moved. My divorce was final. I re-injured my back. So I got back surgery. I fell into a major depression and came out of the depression. And so this was a year after my divorce. I was standing there and I just felt so alive. I felt so peaceful and so full of life. And I just became so overwhelmed that I said out loud, I'm like, why the hell am I so happy? And my kids were in the other room and they were laughing and they're like, did you just ask yourself why you're so happy? And I'm like, yes. I'm like, I want more of this. And I said, when people are sad or mad or whatever, why am I so mad? Why am I so pissed off? So that they can figure out and, kind of dismantle it and whatever. But typically when we're happy, we don't ask ourselves those same questions. I did. And I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I so happy? Because my life wasn't perfect. I had a lot of stuff going on. I was in debt for my divorce. I was recovering from back surgery, still grieving my father's passing, dealing with 2 teenagers, which if you've ever had teenagers, it can be a lot. Building my business, managing a team. I had so many things going on, but I was so deeply happy. And the reason why I was so happy was because I had peace. I had curated so meticulously, and it took a year. It took a year for me to get there, but I purposely brought stuff out of my house that did not bring peace for me. Even if it was like 5 extra vases, I'm like, this is stupid. I don't need 5, I just need 1, which is my favorite one. Got that? Perfect. So I was very intentional. Because I have 1 vase, I'm only going to put these flowers. Okay, perfect. Where am I going to put it so that I see it? I purposely brought in things that made me feel a certain way. I wanted to feel opulence. I wanted to feel luxury. I wanted to feel simplistic energy. I wanted to feel peace. And I was in control of what I brought into and what did not make it into my house. And it was perfect. That was perfect. Was my life perfect? No. But finding the perfection in the imperfection is what helps you to romanticize your life. And again, I remember thinking like, this is it. This is the feeling that I've been craving. It's this feeling of peace. And that moment that I was feeling at that table, it wasn't because I was organized. Again, it was created from letting go. It was created by choosing space over stuff and by believing that I was worthy of the stillness. Now, some of you can't even picture the after because you don't truly believe that you're allowed to have that. A lot of us were raised to think, be grateful for what you have, and wanting more is selfish, and, stop being dramatic. It's just a house. So you settle, you cope. You stay. Please hear me when I say this. You're not ungrateful for wanting peace in your space. You're not chasing perfection. You're claiming presence. I'm going to say this all again. You're not ungrateful for wanting peace. You're not chasing perfection. You're claiming presence. When you romanticize your after, your decluttering shifts from, well, I have to let go of this and I have to get rid of this because that changes to, I'm making room for who I am becoming. I'm making space for that thing, that feeling that I want to feel. Remember that thing that you wrote in the comments at the beginning of this episode? That is what you're making room for. You're not discarding things. You're curating a life of peace. You're intentionally keeping items that align with the life that you're meant to live now. Doing this will give you the freedom to begin to sip your coffee slower, to wake up more relaxed, to move through your life more intentionally. I'm telling you, this is one of the things that I experience every single day, every single week with my clients, is they start to recognize their vibe, that energy that they want to experience every single day. And then they recognize where that is not in their life and where it is. And they lean into where it is, and where it isn't, they start to let some of that go. The shift is amazing. Now, for those of you who are wondering, well, how do I start to bring this into my physical space? Because the internal stuff, that's for you and I to talk about privately or in a group setting. But that physical stuff, I actually have a video, an episode from April 2025. The video is called The Secret to a Clutter-Free Home, Design Your Vibe. And in this video, I talk about how to intentionally create a certain energy in your home that's more aligned with the life that you want to live, so that literally your house doesn't get cluttered. I've linked that video below this in the description, and I've also linked it at the end of this video. You'll see it pop up. So before you declutter any drawer, any closet, any cabinet, I want you to ask yourself, if my home reflected the life that I truly want, and the vibe that I want, and how I want to feel, what would it feel like when I walked in? What would it feel like when I walked in? Because again, if you don't know your after, if you don't have a clear picture of your after, then you're going to stay trapped in your before. One of the things that I do in our virtual decluttering days is I have people take before pictures and after pictures. Your before picture, again, is where you're starting. And then you do all the work, and then you take that after picture. Think about that after picture. Think about when you first moved into your home. How did it feel? Everything had its place. It wasn't cluttered yet. You were like, yes, this is awesome. And then the years pass by, clutter builds up, and then you're just kind of feeling trapped. I hear this all the time with people that just come into my coaching practice. They're like, oh, I can't believe my life has exploded the way that it has. I need to simplify. I need to clear all this stuff out, but I don't even know where to start. How you start, where you start, is the after vision. And when you start to romanticize the after and say, once my house is clear, then I can do XYZ, okay? XYZ is wake up slower, have that cup of coffee on my balcony, go for a long walk, do all the other things that I wanted to do. Okay, start doing that now. Start doing that now. But you have to get that clear vision. To help you out with this, I've opened up applications for my coaching, both private and my group coaching programs, where I help you define your after so that you can walk toward it one small shift at a time. Click the link below in the description to apply now. And remember, all it takes is a clear vision of what you want and the willingness to take one small shift in that direction daily to create a life that you are wildly obsessed with. I love you, and I will see you in the next episode.